Before we start bringing the heat, we want the audience to know our thoughts and prayers go out to all those affected by Hurricane Helene, as well as Hurricane Milton. Please consider donating to Operation Airdrop as they collect and fly out supplies to those affected. A list of needs, a link to donate, and even volunteer opportunities can be found at operation-airdrop.com. Once again, that is operation-airdrop.com as the Front Stretch family comes together to replace the horror of Helene and Milton with hope.
It's time for Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's another edition of Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen. Yours truly here on the week of October the 9th, 2024. On this week's edition of the program, we have the AM Racing driver, Dylan Lupton. He's going to be joining the program. Really interesting chat with him. We talked about his what he does off the racetrack because he doesn't get the opportunity to run a full season. We'll get to talk about how he got this opportunity, his expectations, and what we want to see, what he wants to see out of the final six races, as well as what the future holds for him in 2025 and beyond. Last but not least, my man Caleb Barnes going to come on the program. We're going to be previewing the upcoming race at the Charlotte Roval. We're going to be talking about the latest update in the 2311 lawsuit and so much more. That's all coming up here on Bring the Heat. But right now, let's dive on into our interview with Mr. Dylan Lupton.
Now it's time for
driver the number 15 car for the rest of 2024, Dylan Lupton.
To go into the Inferno with Bryan.
Right now, folks, at this time, going to bring in the program driver the number 15 car for the rest of 2024. Dylan Lupton joined the program. First off, congratulations on that. Just how did this deal come about? Obviously, I think I was reading the press release that you guys have been talking for a while now, but the pen to paper officially got signed this past week. Just how did this all come about?
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to join the 15 crew, drive this Ford Mustang for the rest of the year. We've actually been in talks for, it seems like about a year and a half now about doing, a part-time deal. And, we were even discussing a little bit earlier this season, but, we just couldn't get things all aligned. And then, everything looked like it just was going to line up perfectly to do the last 5 races of the year. So we signed on for those, and then got a call last week about, hey, how about you come around Talladega also? So it's nice to be in a car on a consistent basis for the next 6 weeks in a row.
You mentioned consistent basis. First start since, I think, Portland last June. Just how hard is it just to get back into the rhythm of things? And then what have you been doing since last June?
Yeah, it's extremely tough. These drivers are out here 32, 33 weekends a year, working with their teams, kind of building on each and every race, getting their cars better, improving their craft, behind the wheel. I've been working construction the last, few years, especially, right now is our busy time back in Sacramento. So run all the field operations for our family business. So when I get an opportunity to come out and race, it's exciting, but, it's tough to, get back up to speed at a fast pace like I need to. But at least these 6 weekends I could build each and every race, and hopefully we can get these guys some good finishes.
Now, this wasn't even on my question list, but you kind of are a little different than the average NASCAR driver. I mean, the first thing I saw was, dude, you got some kick-ass tattoos. I'm not going to lie, is there a favorite one that you have? Because, both sleeves are completely filled.
Yeah, no, I have way too many hours in the chair. I just got done with my back, so I got my whole back done. I would say that's probably my favorite because I'm done with it now. It took me 4 or 5 sessions, about probably 22 hours total. So just because I'm finally done with it, that one probably jumped to the top of the list.
My wife's got 2 tattoos. I don't have any. What's that pain like, though? Is it a good pain, a bad pain?
Well, it's definitely not a good pain. I'm not in there with a smile on my face, but you got to earn them. So you just sit there and grit your teeth, and some areas are a lot worse than others, and then it just depends how long you're sitting down for. Once you're past 4 or 5 hours, your body just starts giving up, no matter where it's at. So, yeah, not fun.
Here with Dylan Lupton here, driver of the number 15 car for the remaining of the season. You're in the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Obviously, you ran some Cup starts, I think 2016. When I was doing research, I was looking at a website. They said your most notable thing was being on top of Bryan Nolen's car. What do you remember most about the Cup Series? Is it that incident? Is it something else? Just what do you remember the most about it?
That was a long time ago. It seems like it's been, it's been 8 years ago. It was cool just being part of the whole atmosphere of racing on Sundays. Just the crowds, I would say, was the coolest part of racing in that series. We still get some good crowds in the Truck and Xfinity Series, but Sundays, it's a packed house, and so that was a lot of fun.
Now, obviously, you've been trying to make starts here, starts there. Does it get hard? Does it get demoralizing not being able to get a full-time ride and just making one start here, one start there? Does it get a little bit tough, personally, as well as mentally for you?
Yeah, it's frustrating. There's times in the past few years, I come in and, I had a good deal with DGR a few years back. I think our first 3 Truck Series starts, end up in 3 top 10s and a top 5. So it's like I know I have the capability and the talent to run in the Trucks and Xfinity Series. It's just, I've been hoping for, a good break, but, it's just seems like every year we're just always having to hustle. But I'm really looking forward to this opportunity with AM Racing, and we'll see what the future holds in store.
Does it make it more special when you do get these opportunities?
For sure. I've been, like I said, I've been working probably 65, 70-hour weeks the last, 6 months, in the heat of California. I'm not even able to watch these races on TV because I'm working on Saturdays also. So to be able to come out here and, mix it up, it's definitely a good break from my normal reality.
What are the expectations for you, Dylan? Is it to top 10s, top 5s? I mean, here at Daytona, it's unpredictability. Yeah. You never know. We've seen crazier things have happened here. On an average week, let's not include Talladega, because anything can happen in Talladega. What's a realistic expectation for you guys?
I believe AM Racing has the resources and the personnel to be a pretty good team. I'd like us to be consistently around the top 15. They've shown speed. It's just gotten caught up in a few crashes the last few weeks. But when Joey gets in, he's shown speed in the top 10. So I think if we could click off 1 or 2 top 10s, but consistently be right there in the top 15, I would think that would be a huge step forward.
Last but not least, 2025, you mentioned, see where it goes from here. Anything set in stone? Any part-time one-offs yet?
No, but you could almost guarantee I'm going to be working my hardest to try to get at least a ride for my home track, Sonoma, and then, I love going down to Mexico. I go down there, a handful of times every year, so Mexico City is one that I really want to have on my schedule for next year, but we're going to work hard. We have a handful of partners that we work with, on our construction side that we're going to try to bring on board, and then, over these 6 races, see what, interest we could accumulate and try to turn it into, if we could do 12 races next year, that'd be pretty good.
We'll see if that happens. Coming up, this was Dylan Lupton on Bringing the Heat. Once again, that was Dylan Lupton, driver of the number 15 car for the remainder of the 2024 season. Let's dive on in now into our What is Still Hot segment, where we look at all the latest news and notes of the NASCAR world.
What's still hot? It's time to upgrade you on the latest news in NASCAR.
I'm going to bring in my co-host at this time. Absolutely crushed it at Talladega this past weekend, watching 500 cars go four wide for multiple laps. I mean, it was absolutely incredible. But we're not going to dive into that yet. We are going to bring in Caleb Barnes at Caleb Barnes _ on the Twitter. Mr. Barnes, great job on this past weekend, not just on a specific day, but this past weekend, crushed it all 3 days. How are you doing, my man? Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Doing well, thanks. I'm trying to recover a little bit. That's what Monday was for mostly, but I think my Apple Watch told me I walked about 23 miles at Talladega. Great exercise, but my feet definitely took a little bit longer. I honestly had some blisters and stuff to work through, so just getting back in the flow of things now, and it was a fun week though, or weekend, I should say.
You know what? I'm literally gonna go to my Apple Watch. Let's see how many steps I walked. I haven't even done this yet. Let's see. Friday, I walked 11,654. Saturday, I walked 21,163, and then Sunday, I walked 16,295. So it was very walking filled weekend, that is for sure, but we absolutely crushed on the grounds for frontstretch.com. There was a lot of stuff going around Talladega, mainly about what happened last week. 2311 Front Row Motorsports suing NASCAR. Well, it came out today, Caleb, or should I say yesterday, when you guys are listening to this, that 2311 and Front Row, they have filed a preliminary injunction in their antitrust case. Among the key components that we found out, they include the documents discussing the mandatory release provision in the 2025 charter agreement, documents discussing NASCAR decision to end negotiating with the team's negotiation committee and only negotiate with individual race teams for the 2025 charter agreement, as well as documents discussing NASCAR's decision to present the take it or leave it final proposal for the 2025 charter agreement. According to Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic, NASCAR's response to motion for expedited discovery is due on Friday, October the 11th. The response to preliminary injunction is due the following Monday, and then the preliminary injunction is set for October the 16th on next Wednesday. With that being said, is this all standard, normal? Do we need to bring into the program Trey Lau, who has a political science degree, no, we do not? Okay, Trey's busy doing baseball stuff, so that's fine. Caleb,
I don't want a law degree, man. That's better.
Well, what degree? What did you say in our group chat?
I have a minor in political science. It doesn't mean
okay.
And now this audio is going to sound bad, so let's just redo this because I have no mic on. I have the TV on. That was so bad.
No, we're keeping this in there, Trey. That's okay. Thank you
My
very
heart
much.
is going through my chest right now because I'm watching the freaking Yankees game.
And that was Trey Lyle. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trey.
Thank you, Trey. Caleb, I know you don't have a minor in political science, as far as I know, but what did you take away from all of this?
No, I do not have a minor or a major of any kind. I am just a couch lawyer, I guess, which really means that I shouldn't say anything legally because that's a good way to get sued. But
just say allegedly.
Yeah. Well, allegedly, I am very interested in this to see how this all works, if that works. It'll be really intriguing to see how this all goes because we've been hearing about this battle, this clash of the Titans, and 2311's kind of been spearheading that for the last 2 years as far as these charter discussions have been going on with Curtis Polk and seeing that they've joined forces with Front Row Motorsports. It'll be really interesting to see how this all goes because, again, taking on Michael Jordan, one of the most powerful athletic figures in the world, but then also the NASCAR entity is very, very powerful upon their own. So I'm very intrigued to see how this will go, how this will, I guess, affect the sport. And I feel like, just me like thinking out loud, like my article that I've been filling for Dalton on this year. I feel like this is definitely going to change some things on the way that current charters work. I don't know that we'll see it work all the way in the favor of 2311 and Front Row, but again, I certainly hope that something is done to give the teams a little bit more leverage, because it does kind of just from my perspective, it seems like they definitely have been getting kind of the short end of the stick on a lot of these deals. And I would love to see personally the teams be able to kind of return to what they used to be able and hire some more guys based on talent, because they're receiving more revenue versus having to bring in guys that have a bunch of money but might not be the best showcases of driver talent. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to try to add.
I mean, you said it best. It was a little tenuous talking with Denny Hamlin on Saturday about just all of this. It was kind of I think the tension kind of left the air when the first question was from Bob Pockris, and he said, how can you win a NASCAR championship when you're suing NASCAR? And everybody kind of was like, holy crap. So that the tension kind of went away after that. So shout out to Bobby P for that. That was it felt good to get all the tension out of the way. Last but not least, in our What Still Hot segment, a new configuration for the Roval. Looks like turns 7 and 8 are going to be the tricky spot. Caleb, what are you expecting from this upcoming weekend in Charlotte? Denny Hamlin says that this turn was intended to create chaos. Is this going to create as much chaos as people are expecting?
I don't know about as much chaos as people are expecting, but it certainly will create some chaos. We'll see how the race plays out, because the real tricky thing with a lot of these road course races is once they get going green, once they get strung out, I mean, the cars are honestly that they drive the best they ever have on the road courses. And so it's not like there's as many opportunities for yellows to come out like there used to be. Now, these sharp hairpin turns are kind of creating some more passing opportunities. And with the durability of the next gen car, it is possibly going to allow some guys to drive it in really deep and actually make some contact, which is something that has gone away with the next gen car. But I really don't think we'll see too much chaos on the start and really even on the stage restarts until we get into the final stage. That's when guys get really desperate. That's whenever guys are like, oh, well, that's when they realize if we have a green flag run right here, like it's going to be impossible to pass. So that's my worry a little bit, is if we get to the latter stages of the race within the final 20 laps and a yellow flies, that's when everything breaks loose. And that's when things could become and devolve into total chaos. My hope is that it doesn't, but who knows? We'll see. The 2022 Roval race was absolutely just boring. Nothing happened. And then there's a late caution that came out, screwed everything up, and Christopher Bell got through. A lot of other guys wrecked, and Bell won on his way to Championship 4 appearance. And thinking about last year, it was a little bit more tame at the end as well. So I'm hoping. A lot of people talk about the Roval and the chaos that it creates, but I feel like it's become a bit more of a legit racetrack and not so much just another chaos place. But then again, like Denny Hamlin said, that's exactly what these changes were designed to do. So we'll see. I'll definitely be watching it with intrigue this weekend.
Let's dive on into our soundbite of the week, where we hear from Chris Gabar on what the changes could possibly happen with this next gen car at super speedway tracks.
Well, Tony, what angered you at the end of the race? What did you take issue with?
What the hell do you think I was mad about? Dumb little runs us clear down to the infield. He wants to about everybody else, and he's the one that drives like a little. I'm going to bust his ass.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
And short track races.
It's time for the sound bites of the week.
All right, I'm here with Denny Hamlin's crew chief, Chris Gabehart. Obviously, it could have been a lot worse for you guys, but it could have been better. You guys could have ended up in victory lane. Just describe your day and the 11 teams in game plan.
I mean, largely with this racing the way it is now, you've got to get lucky at the right times, and we got lucky for once. We've been Gen 7 racing this platform for a while now at speedways, and been swept up in so many messes that weren't of our own doing, and just get unlucky kind of in those instances. And finally we were in trouble out back there with quite a bit of car damage, and they all wadded them up like they normally do, and we got lucky and missed it and ended up 10th.
Joey Logano says this type of racing isn't even fun. Chase Briscoe says it's infuriating to race when you have to save fuel the entire race. As a crew chief, how what are your thoughts on it? And then can they fix it somehow, some way?
Yeah, in Gen 6 racing, when you came to these kind of tracks and watched it, there was a lot of nuanced driver talent on display, whether you were running in 20th or up front and anywhere in between. And that was great. I mean, you could see greatness in that, just like I love Bristol so much because you can see greatness in that. But with Gen 7 Speedway racing, I just don't see any greatness. There's qualifying up front. There's a little bit of a tussle after an event. So a green flag falls off or falls, green flag comes out, or, a pit cycle just completes and there's a little bit of flustering. But once they all get lined up, you're just stuck. There's no more driver ability, no more driver talent to speak of. I mean, we're talking about very small things. So it's all about green flag pit cycles and, strategy and fuel mileage and stuff, to the point of, can they fix it? I mean, if we're looking for racing to be what we care about, if we want racing purists want to see so many different disciplines of racing throughout a Cup Series schedule, that's what sets Cup Series apart, right? Is there's so many different types of racing these guys have to be good at, and that's the only schedule in the world where that's true. If we want driver racing discipline to matter again at these tracks, we have to do something. I am a proponent of making the stage lengths the length of the fuel tank. So all of the pitting that's necessary to be done is under caution, because we all have fuel to make it to the caution that we care about. There's some race length challenges that we would have to work through there as an industry. But I'm confident we can do it. And I'm sure, like many things in the off season, NASCAR will take a look at it and see if they can make it better.
Caleb, you know why I love talking to Chris Gabehart so much? It's because he is so authentic and he takes the time to really think about how to answer them. You see sometimes where, especially in younger drivers, and no disrespect, they're young and I get it. This is their first few times getting interviewed, and so they have the generic of what they have to say and everything. With Chris Gabehart, he is so real and authentic, and he takes the time to actually listen to your question and think of an answer in his mind before saying it. And we saw that in that video, and I'm thankful for Trey that he played all 3 minutes of it, because I think all 3 minutes were really, really good. And he had some great points that in the Gen 6 car, it was actually talent from the driver. In this next Gen car, all you got to do is qualify up front and then make something big happen on a restart or after a crash or after a pit stop, and you're going to be up the front and contend for a win. It's so refreshing to see someone that real and that authentic share their thoughts and beliefs on what needs to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what, I was trying to go back and listen again, because I know a lot of the topic and debate was about the super speedway racing and how they get stuck there. But listening back, I know after I heard his comments brought up on some other podcasts as well, that just talking about there's no greatness. I mean, thinking of a number of the other races this year and really in this next gen car, I feel like you could attribute that to about an even split of seeing how guys win these races. And you're like, well, that's not really as great as you think. Like, I know I was looking at some of the summer stretch of things, thinking back the last few weeks, like Ross Chastain. Yeah, kind of like that was pretty great. A few weeks ago, Kyle Larson going out and dominating. Like, yeah, that was great on his part. Chris Buescher, it wasn't overtime restart, but I mean, he went toe to toe with SVG. That was great. But then you start looking before that at Atlanta, Joey Logano winning at a super speedway. You're kind of like, there wasn't a ton of greatness there. Michigan, Tyler Reddick, he put himself in position, but I mean, he just won on an overtime restart. And that's what a lot of these races have turned into. Indianapolis, Kyle Larson won on an overtime restart. Joey Logano won at Nashville on an overtime restart. And you're starting to think like, well, I mean, again, he might have been talking more about the super speedway problem, but I feel like that is a problem with this whole Gen 7 platform overall is it's become such a track position game at almost all the racetracks. And once you get to these late race scenarios, the cars are so even and the car behind is at such a disadvantage that all you have to do is get a lead, because it takes 20, 30 laps for the cars to actually show signs of handling adjustments and stuff like that. So it was definitely an interesting comment. And I still don't, I don't agree with the comments of like, we have to make the stage lengths the right amount of the fuel run. Cause I mean, you think those are some short stages, and then what does that do to the race and that sort of thing? Maybe you spread them out. Maybe you make the stage lengths the exact length of 2 fuel runs, but even then I don't know. Whatever way, you're still going to have guys trying to save fuel so they can take less fuel at the next stop, and the problem's going to compound. And it's just it's a car platform thing more than anything else. But again, I'm the same way. Gabe Hart does such a great job of putting things into words and trying to help people understand why, not only why, like, I mean, it's such a topic in the garage, but why people are so frustrated by it. Because the crew chiefs are frustrated that they know their driver's great, but he can't make any moves. And the drivers are frustrated because they're like, I know my skill set at these places. Like Joey Logano, like saying, man, I didn't have any fun at all. Like, he knows his skill sets, and he feels like he's not being given the opportunity to be great whenever he goes to these places. So yeah, a lot of great comments, a lot of great sound bites from the weekend. That was a good one to choose. I also enjoyed Josh Berry's sound bite from the Info Care Center that I believe you also got, Nolan. So you're on mute, Nolan.
Thank you. I'm actually glad you mentioned the Josh Berry thing, because I'm going to mention that in my final thoughts segment. So let's dive on in right now into that final thought segment.
It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag.
The checkered flag is out, and it's time for the final thoughts.
Our final thought segment is in the air. Whatever you want to rant, rave, or anything in between. Mr. Caleb Barnes, the floor is yours, my man.
Man, final thoughts. There's been a lot of thoughts bouncing around my noggin the past couple days, but I think one thing that really popped in my head, and I'd like to try to write some things down and see if I can compile my thoughts for maybe an article towards the end of the year in review, is I just don't think the next gen car and the playoffs can coexist. I love the playoffs, and I like, from the first few years, I thought they were fantastic, but everything's so equal in this next gen car. You see people always posting about the stats and like what it would be under the old points format. And it's really hard to compare because they race differently nowadays, but they race differently because of the way this next gen car races and because of how durable it is and all those sort of things. So that's one thing that I've kind of been thinking about, is like, I feel like the playoffs don't have quite the same drama, the same luster, the same excitement, because there is just so much chaos and there is just so much random factors that are added around, with whether it's NASCAR's kind of officiating, throwing things out the window, or whether it's guys just running over each other with no regard because they know that they're going to get away with a durable car. So that's one thing I was thinking about. And like I said, I'd like to try to possibly gather my thoughts even more and expound on that. But I think just the current way that things are with the combination of the playoffs and the next gen car is not mixing well at all. And one of those two things definitely has to change sometime in the near future.
For me, Josh Berry came out of the care center and he was so livid. He says, I hope those 42 other mother cars aren't getting towed back to the race, getting towed back to pit road, because that's a penalty. And he's got a point. When 1 week ago, Josh Berry had his day ruined on lap 1 because he couldn't get towed back. And then 1 week later, you see the 14-car Chase Briscoe and the 9-car Chase Elliott get towed back to pit road after their wreck in which they were involved. Why are we having this discussion? I mean, it feels like we're having time in and time out again. I think I was listening to DBC, and I think it was Andrew Krillin says he hopes we see Elton Sawyer less than 5 races on our social media getting interviewed by us. And honestly, that's true because it feels like we talked to Elton Sawyer after something penalty-wise almost every single race during the playoffs. And it's got to stop, whether it's the DVP clock, whether it's the 4 flat tires on if they can get back to pit road, whether it's if they have damage or not, whether it's you can literally work on your car during the red flag. Like, what are we doing here, people? Because guess what? Something could happen at Phoenix and we could literally cost someone the championship. And how bad of a look would that be on our sport? We already got a bad enough look on our sport when 2 of the teams are suing NASCAR. One of the biggest name teams with one of the biggest names in all of sports in Michael Jordan. I mean, between this and just everything surrounding the lawsuit, it's not been a good week for NASCAR. So hopefully there will be no other disagreement regarding officiating this upcoming weekend in Charlotte.
Yeah, and I was going to add to that as well of like I was finishing up my 2 articles after the race on Sunday, and I saw Jordan Bianchi walking out from, I guess they had just recorded the teardown, and I know his thing a lot of times is, oh, like I'm Team Chaos, whatever chaos, and so I was like, oh, you must have loved that since you're Team Chaos, and he was like, well, no, like it's one thing if it's chaos on the track, but again, just the officiating things, just a lot of the car problems. It sucks that week after week, rather than talking about the greatness of the drivers, like Gabe Hart mentioned a little bit ago, we're talking about problems with the car, problems with NASCAR, problems with the officiating, and it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth week after week. And it's hard for people to keep coming back after they keep getting let down on such a massive level.
Last but not least, I just got an alert. Thank you to Trey Lauer, our fantastic producer. Really quickly, in like 60 seconds or less, according to Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal, the CW is considering having its NASCAR booth call some races next year remotely from NASCAR's new production facility in North Carolina, per people familiar with the matter. I mean, what are we doing here, Caleb? I mean, we see how bad the production is when the trucks do the second half of the season. I mean, it's not good. Like, what are we doing here?
Boo. That's all I have. It just feels lazy, like cutting costs, cutting corners. And I know NASCAR wants to use their new production facility, but I mean, like these tracks have press boxes for a reason, and everything is better when you have people at the racetrack who can see everything with their own 2 eyes.
Yeah, I mean, according to SBJ as well, looks like Fox Sports' Adam Alexander seen to become the lead play-by-play guy. So at least that is a good thing there. But yes, we'll check more on that later on frontstretch.com. Caleb, last but not least, promote your socials as well as what are you going to be cooking up on frontstretch.com, my friend?
Yeah, I'm at Caleb Barnes _ on Twitter, X, I guess as it's called, and I guess this week, I think Dalton's taking over thinking again this week for the Charlotte Roval. I'll have it a few more weeks before the end of the season, and then we'll get to find some more roles. Just had an interview beyond the cockpit with Raja Karuth. It was posted, I guess, on Wednesday, so yesterday if you're listening to this right now. And have another one, not sure when it'll be posted yet, but I also had a great discussion with Jordan Anderson at Talladega talking about the ownership side of things. And I really wanted to hear his thoughts on going from trucks to Xfinity and kind of straddling both of those. And then he's made the full-time leap to Xfinity only, but his team has continued to grow. So I thought we had a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to getting that out sometime kind of here towards the end of the season or maybe early on in the off season.
Once again, check that article out on frontstretch.com. Once again, coming up on the Front Stretch Podcast Networks, we got Through the Gears. My man Tino's got all the latest betting odds, and then you got Stock Car Scoop as well as Happy Hour coming up for you this weekend. For Mr. Caleb Barnes, Trey Lau, and everybody associated with frontstretch.com, I am Brian Timothy Dono. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk with you next week to kick off the round of 8 at Las Vegas.
I'm Caleb Barnes with frontstretch.com. Come back soon for more great racing videos, and if you like us, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.